Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 2 of Mythika Tales of Adventure and Glory, an Agon RPG supporting the Driftwood Players. Hi, everybody. Welcome in. It's lovely to see all of you here. If you are just joining us, and this is the first episode of Mythika that you have seen, it's fairly episodic, so don't worry, you won't be like too out of the loop on anything, because essentially this is a RPG system called Agon. It is by Evil Hat Games, and in each episode, our band of misfit heroes. Heroes not in the sense of being like good people, but heroes in the sense of being people who do heroic things, I feel like is a very important distinction in this particular story. Travel from island to island, sort of on their mythic odyssey homewards, or wherever their final destination will lead them when their fate runs out. So the last time we visited an island, which had a name, but I don't remember what it was. But more importantly, that island was plagued by just terrible trolls and individuals spreading disinformation. But we bested them, and we, as our heroes, prevailed. But more importantly, we also were supported by you, the wonderful chorus in our Greek story. And your role is both to help us raise funds for charity, specifically, for an organization, specifically the Driftwood Players, which I will have Dan tell us a little bit about while I go very quickly grab my water bottle.
Driftwood Players, they're one of Washington's oldest community theaters. And they're in the fairly unusual position of being one of the few remaining mid-range theaters in the Seattle area. There aren't a lot of places left like that. The middle class is, like most aspects of America, getting carved out. And they're largely a volunteer organization. People have been there for decades who just love to contribute and give their times and talents to the arts. They're in a really tough place right now with COVID, and their future is uncertain. So I am very grateful, and I think we are all very grateful for any donations you make on their behalf. And I guarantee that if you do join our course, I will personally do my best to see that you get a most glorious death, as in the sacrifice that must be made to the gods ultimately.
It is a way to live forever, one may say, to have your name remembered, which is ultimately the only goal any of our characters in this story have. Just as a reminder, use the Tiltify link to actually donate to Driftwood. All of the funds go directly through them. If you use the other one, then it goes to me, and it gets really messy. So don't do that. Use the !donate link. And if you do donate, there are two main ways that you can influence what's going to happen in this show. One, you can directly give us bonds. As you can see, I've now added it to this scene as well. Down below, we have 0 chorus bonds to start with today. But every donation that comes through of a certain amount will count as another bond, which are really useful because they're basically like an extra die that we get to add to hopefully do better at whatever it is we are attempting to do. So you will lend us your support as the chorus, and Dan will murder your fictional chorus personality.
I should point out
that's
they're
not a requirement.
You're not required to murder it. You might make it. You might live.
Well, it depends, I guess, if someone else.
Yeah, it depends on if it's Dan
before I do,
or someone else who does it. And you can also, when you donate, you can vote for one of the 2 gods that you would like to tithe to. Who are our gods today, Tony, as our strife player?
You've got to choose between Artemis, the great hunter, protector of young women, very fierce. Better not see her naked or you're in a lot of trouble because you're mortal and she'll kill you or turn you into a girl, which, might not be bad. But it's probably a big change you're not necessarily ready for. That's Artemis. She's great, especially if you like getting along well in the woods. However, you have another choice, Aphrodite, the goddess of beauty, of procreation, of, having a good time, but not such a good time that you're going to donate to Dionysus. So, yeah. Both both great gods. I encourage you to consider them both equally. Your donation, though, will matter. Your tithe will matter because you will give that god more power in tonight's story. That might mean it helps the player should they be sort of acting in that god's favor, or it might mean it hurts the heroes if they are in fact kind of working against that god. They will receive some signs at some point tonight, giving you maybe some hints about what each god specifically wants tonight.
Well, that should be fun. And with that, I think we can jump into our story here today. So let's have everybody kind of introduce themselves and maybe like one sentence about your character, who you're playing. I will begin. I am Random Tuesday. This is my channel. You probably know who I am. My pronouns are she, her, and I am playing Ligeia. She is assuasive voiced. She is cursed by Demeter, once a siren, now forced to be human. It is an unpleasant experience for her, and her pronouns are she, her. Let's go down to Claudia.
Hi, I'm Claudia, but on Twitch and Twitter, I'm Jackie Dash, Jakidash. My own pronouns are she and her, and my character's pronouns are she and her. And the character is Alecto, the pure-hearted and strong-limbed, daughter of Simi, an orphan there, raised by the village. A bunch of something came in and stole the rest of the children on that island. So she is at the age of 16 on her own quest to find those children.
Let's go over to Carista Stan.
Well, I am Dan Poslins at Dan Poslins. I am a video game developer as well as an improviser, actor, and director in the area. And as hinted earlier, I play stout-legged Choristus, scion of Chiron, who is secretly a centaur, keeps his back half hidden underneath his chitin most of the time. He's very old with a white pointy beard and receded hairline. And he wields the Rod of Asclepius, which is the legendary, or mythical, I should say, staff with the serpent around it that was given by, it belonged to Asclepius, and who was the first healer, and he wields it in honor of Apollo.
Mm-hmm. Very exciting. Next, we're going to go up to Janine.
Yes, I'm Janine, she, hers. I'm playing Batir Nim, clever-eyed Batir Nim, who is the daughter of Medusa and Poseidon, follower of Hecate. Yes, she's quite devout and a hater of Athena and Perseus. So she desires revenge on Perseus for carrying her mother's head in a bag. It's complicated.
There's some history there.
Yeah.
Cheryl.
Yeah.
Hi, everybody. I am Cheryl, aka Muppet Aphrodite, on almost every platform from TikTok to Medium. I am a user experience designer by day, and my pronouns are she, her. I'm playing Xenon, who is known as the Ironbender, essentially a maker for the Greek times. Xenon chooses to honor Hephaestus and is only a little bit obsessed with the fire of the forge. And I think that's Xenon. Xenon tries to solve problems with her hands.
And sometimes fire.
Mm-hmm.
And speaking of fire, our Strife player tonight is Tony.
Hello,
Take it away.
yes. I'm Tony Beeman. I'm at Tiny Beeman. I can... you can use my pronouns as he, him, or they, them. And a Strife player, my job is to bring fire, but also ice, but, plenty of different elements, whatever we think and find that Strife might be, not to hurt the players. I would never want to hurt the players, to help bring them glory for what hero becomes a hero without really having to overcome some real suffering. So Strife is here to help the players, gain some glory before they die, as they inevitably are going to do. So just think of me as here to help them live on in legend.
Are you ready?
Shall I
Ready to
take it away?
I think so.
All right. Well, tell us all, O muses, of our heroes who, in their last adventure, did travel to an island known as it is Lauren Cinemosia, which is the Greek word for conspiracy. And did please the goddess Athena greatly, so much so, along with the tithing of our chorus, that Alecto did, in fact, bring Athena down from the sky with her net at one point to actually be present on the field of battle. They saved the great library of that island, in which all knowledge, both true and false, is contained. And they saved the queen. They did not stop the spirit of disinformation from escaping into the world, however. And such the world will always, from this point on, contain some amount of false information that mortals will have to contend with. However, the heroes pleased the great people of the city and were bequeathed a new ship, which has not yet been named. They were given oarsmen and a couple of scholars to travel with them in their party to help them try to find their way home out of this mysterious sort of mist of islands they are trapped within. And so the city feted them and awarded them and talked of their great deeds, which we're going to hear about from the heroes momentarily, and sent them on their way. Out into the ocean to once again into the mists of this great sea-like land in order to try to find their way home. You've traveled now for 2 or 3 days, and everyone's still sort of excited to hear about your great deeds. This is not so much a contest as just I'd like to hear your one great deed you're going to take with you. From each of you from your last adventure. I'll start with you, Xenon.
We faced hordes of angry islands people, farmers, salt of the earth, that were railing against us with false truths. And together with Charistus, I forged the rainbow horn of knowledge. And the inspiration I drew from that enabled me to bring the people of Cinemosia onto our side and convinced them that we were better together than apart.
Yes. And so as Jason had his golden fleece and as Perseus had Batira's mother's head, you have your rainbow horn, which may aid you in the future, at least once. Lygia, tell us of your great deeds.
Well, everyone's still alive, so I don't know how great the deed was in the end, but we did destroy both emotionally and physically, the very essence of the Trollus, and I have his name. It is mine now. I will destroy it forever. It is writ upon this piece of paper, and it is his legacy that I will, and then she just throws it into the ocean. I will drown him and others like him. That is my great deed.
Very well.
And she just stares at all of the new sailors who don't know who she is.
Yeah, you have a feeling they've been talking to the old sailors, and they don't quite know why, but they're all scared of you already. So.
And that is my great deed. Fear.
Alecto, tell us of your great deeds.
Well, Alecto thinks back, and the greatest deed on that island was when she used her net, the net that she used to catch fish all the way at Simi, and she pulled down, using Athena's grace and wisdom, the giant statue of her to defeat not Trollus, but a follower of that other god.
Pate, goddess of deceit.
And so after the battle and before they got on the boat, I believe she asked for a bag of some sort, a one that is emblazoned with the signs of Athena, and scooped up some of those crumbles and dust from that statue, which she will use in some time. With the wisdom of Athena on her side and dust.
Excellent. Stout-legged Charistus, tell us of your great deeds.
Charistus, with his craft and reason, and also the sacrifice of a mortal, was able to secure and defend the great library of Athena. And they gave to him, as thanks for this great deed, a trophy, which is some of the magic parchments that they had, which was capable of copying other scrolls, as well as, I believe, transcribing in general, which he now carries with him under his chiton.
Great magical scroll should be useful in the future. And finally, the hero who achieved the greatest glory on the last island, Betir Nem, who somehow secured the favor of Athena in spite of really, I think, not liking Athena. Tell us of your great deeds, Betir.
Betir gathers the sailors around her and says, worshippers of Poseidon, attend me and I shall tell you my tale of glory and how I defeated Trollus and misinformation. And then she, as she did on the island, conjures up 10 symbols.
Am I mute? You need to check your audio settings.
Okay.
I think check your Windows settings because you are peaking and just crackling way too much. Windows may have, because this happens to me sometimes, if you go into Windows recording devices, they may have just artificially boosted your levels.
Yeah, that would be...
The sailors are so...
Now you're very quiet.
The fourth wall itself has been cast asunder.
No.
Great mist.
Better. Keep talking.
Your words blow the sailors to the ground as they try to continue oaring in your mighty voice.
Right. So
that's better. There you go. Dan is also a little loud. Manglepork is correct.
That's me.
Yes, you are Dan.
So through the explanation of the 10 logical fallacies, Betir did defeat Trollus and his misinformation. And so she goes through and says to the sailors, and now I shall inoculate you against the false information that is floating out into the world. And she's like, and this one is ad hominem, and that one is circular reasoning. And she goes through all of them. Because she loves her sailors.
Excellent. They are the scholars seem very impressed by this, and the oarsmen it's over their head, but that just impresses them all the more. You have a feeling they'd believe anything you said should you bring this thing up again. The days go on. You set across the ocean. You're able to fish and find food, but you see land for no day at all. You do, and for the audience, in Agon, normally we would have this voyage section in which we would sort of tell stories and form bonds. We decided to fast forward through that, but rest assured, these heroes have formed more bonds with each other as they traveled, bonds which, in the same way they might use their bonds with you. I see we've already received some chorus members who are at the ready. They form bonds with each other as well. Betir has led them in a great sacrifice to Poseidon, and they have and has gained Poseidon's favor. Each hero probably gaining favor with their own favored gods as well. And it is about 6 days of travel before one of the sailors comes up to the five of you who are gathered around on one of the upper decks of the boat and the ship, I should say, and says, excuse me, we've been talking, and the scholars have told us it is bad fortune to sail upon a ship with no name. We need a name that will represent the glory you've brought us so that we ourselves may attain glory for ourselves. Why, I don't even have a name that's recorded to history. And perhaps at least I could be represented by the name of the boat.
I've heard Alecto is good at names.
which of you heroes will rise to this? This is no simple matter, the naming of a ship, of a trireme. This is a great moment in which you, each of you may wish to attempt to convince the crew that your name is the greatest. Who will take on this challenge?
Do we have a domain yet?
Well, I would guess this is an arts and oration challenge. Unless you
try throwing someone off the boat to convince me, like, my name is better.
Yes, and that would cost you pathos. That measure, as we mentioned last week, of sort of pain and suffering that every hero goes through.
I, Batir Nim, will answer the challenge.
Excellent. Will anybody else?
I, Xenon, will answer the challenge as well.
I, stout-legged Charistus, scion of Chiron, will craft only the finest name for this boat in the name of Apollo himself.
All right, calling on Apollo.
I, Eclecto, the pure-hearted, will call upon this challenge.
I, a suasive-voiced Lygia, will convince you that the name that I choose will be the most superior name.
Very well. I, on behalf of the world and the sailors and the scholars, have rolled, and it's apparently not going to be too difficult to convince them. As a target of 5.
Oh, good.
So, roll with
Wish
your.
I'd known that before I spent divine favor. But...
Go big or go home.
Yes. So players, they're currently choosing. They've named themselves. You've noticed they have epitaphs. You've noticed they may have gods they represent or beings. They can choose to bring these into the contest as they choose, and each one they choose, well, it might cost them something, but it will aid them in achieving success in this. I see.
Gosh darn it!
All right. It looks like Xenon, do I believe you're going to tell us your idea first?
Our ship must sail the waters without offending any of the many gods who look down upon us, so I propose we call the ship Calanthe, a beautiful flower sailing upon these placid seas. May it bring pleasure and satisfaction to all of the gods who behold it.
Yes, beautiful flower. People shall fear our name as we travel across the ocean. They all seem impressed for now, but it's time for the next hero to speak.
Alecto rises and adjusts her beautiful curly golden hair and is like, I think it shall be called Swifty because it is fast, and so that children can also say and join the cries of joy as we sail through. Because any name that's more than 6 or 7 letters is too hard for those young.
Yes, our children shall greatly enjoy our adventures, and they shall go on and tell of our legend. What a fantastic name, Swifty. They seem convinced now by this name, but...
Swifty. Lygia steps forward, sort of puts a hand in front of Alecto, and just looks at all of them. This ship should be called Inevitable End.
Weirdly, they seem excited by that. Or by excited, they shrink back and they say, yes, whatever she says, certainly that would be a great name. Well, we won't say no to that. That's our name, so be it. Inevitable End.
I have a superior name that I believe will be agreed upon by everyone, and that is to call our ship Horse-Faced Athena. For she has a horse face, and I want all to know it.
Yes, horses are majestic creatures that have helped bring us Greeks to many successful battles on land. Why, I know a story of heroes who once built a statue of a giant horse and used it to trick the foolish Trojans. So, yes, that is a great idea. We will honor Athena by pointing out how horse-like her face is. Thank you, Betty or Nim.
We did our sacrifice off screen, which is how we get back our divine favor, and it was to Athena, and Janine narrated that she yeeted an owl into the water.
Poseidon.
Poseidon,
He was
sorry.
into it.
But you yeeted an owl into the water. So I feel like you're saying horse-faced Athena as you're like slaughtering the owl and throwing it into the water.
Someone's really flaunting it.
Yes.
Charistus has been
waiting.
Charistus has been sitting in silent contemplation on his hindquarters throughout all of this, and now finally he stands and looks at the rest of them and says, "Your efforts are all valiant, but they are incorrect, for I have been able to surmise and calculate the one true name for this boat." And he holds his staff aloft and says, "And by the power of Apollo, I have seen that it is already inscribed on the very hull itself of this boat." And as you all go to look over at the side of the boat, he says, "For what is a ship other than a ship? But it is also the face with which we present ourselves, and therefore our ship can be named none other than Shippy McShipface."
Yeah.
Why did I not know that was coming?
Yes, that is clearly the best name of all. Why confuse people with the name of some other creature, or risk offending some god by calling a thing that which it is not? Why is it not Plato himself who said this is but a shadow of the real thing? And we acknowledge that by naming it after itself, after the true thing. Our boat is but a shadow of reflected in a cave. Yes, Shippy McShipface. And the MC shall one day, in a few thousand years, come to mean a large number, reflecting our glory. Why, this is clearly the best name, and the sailors and scholars cheer. And
I'm going to go get ship-faced as Ligio picks up some wine.
I feel good. I've done a good thing today, I think.
Enon turns to Christus and says, "I shall endeavor to craft a face for the ship that honors its name."
Excellent.
Is it just a smaller ship on the front of the ship?
Yes. I'm whittling something that looks like a ship from Thomas the Tank Engine. Like that's
Yes.
what I'm starting to work on now. It's like a masthead that.
Oh, I'm so happy.
Most mortals would have annoyed the crewmen with this name, but your words and your logic are unfathomable. So they sail and row excitedly across the waters, singing the songs of Shippy McShipface and its legends that they're certain shall come about. It is only a couple of days more that they see land, and they turn, and they first, because you named the ship, they turn to you, stout-legged Charistus, to see if you're going to take on the mantle of leadership or defer to some other hero.
I see great things in our future, and I do not know all of what the future holds, but I know that I will lead us to great glory. For now.
Very well. They cheer. They throw their oars up in the air and shout and say, "Yes, stout-legged Christus shall lead us. Tell us, shall we approach this island before us? Our scholars say that there appears to be some sort of lighthouse upon it."
We indeed.
We are really hopeful you say yes.
we will sail to the next island, I think. No. We shall make land, and we shall in the name of ourselves and our gods, we will right wrongs and triumph over evil.
Very well. The oarsmen begin to sing. I should say oars people, men and women present, as well as among the scholars. They sing the name of your ship and they bring it about. And as you approach, you do see that on one end is a great lighthouse. It's huge. It's taller than almost any structure you've ever seen. Maybe almost as tall as the library with the statue that used to sit upon it that you saw before. And on the other end looks like it looks like people dwell there. It's not stone, it's more tents erected with like furs and leathers, but you can tell it's been here some amount of time. You see sort of glistening metal, indicating perhaps weapons on some of the walls that have been erected. You see like fort-like structures. And there is, in fact, a dock that's built, mostly with wood into the water, that your sailors row up to. As you row up, you see several women with giant shields and spears step forward, and they come walking up, and they say, "It is a sign. We received a sign this day that that heroes should come to our islands. And here you are. It is what the gods meant to say. Do you come with harm or do you come to trade? Why are you here?"
We are here in the names of our patron gods so that we may bring glory to ourselves and to all of you. Tell us what it is that ails your island so that we may end whatever blight it might be suffering from.
They say you're still a bit out. They still seem a little guarded. They say we received 2 signs today that our priests have told us come. One from Artemis. For Artemis, our favored god, sent a sign that said it was 2 rabbits in a field, and they hopped about. The third rabbit in the distance, and one rabbit approached the other, and they performed some sort of dance of mating and attracted the other rabbit. And they were so caught up among themselves, they didn't see a hawk descend from the sky and tear the 2 rabbits in 2. And only the third rabbit survived, running and hiding in the woods. And the other guard speaks and says, "Yes, but also we received a sign from Aphrodite as well." And in the sign, our other warrior saw 2 rabbits indeed escaped into the woods from a hawk and multiplied. And soon there were many rabbits. The rabbits came back out in great numbers and leapt upon a hawk that was on the ground and thumped it to death, smashing it into the ground. Have you come as an answer to either of these visions? Do either mean anything to you?
I turn to the rest of the crew and I say, "What say you all to these signs?"
I fear that Aphrodite seems threatened by these lady warriors here. She likes not idle women, not procreating, not cavorting with those of the opposite gender. I fear that she lures them against the wishes of their patron.
I agree. And the sign from Artemis was similar, that she did strike down 2 bunnies that were making love in the way of Aphrodite. So perhaps we have stumbled upon gods in competition with one another.
Well, no, go ahead, please.
Oh, you go ahead, human man.
Yes,
You
I
were
am
correct
a
on
human
one
man.
part.
Thank you for that's why don't we go investigate the remains? First, let us go and see what remains of the rabbits that were attacked by the hawk. that we
Agreed.
believe came from Artemis herself. See if
You,
we can divine her meaning.
no human man shall set foot on this part of the island.
Well, that's convenient. We don't have any.
This one here, who speaks for you, as people of the patriarchal world clearly do, seems to be a human man.
Lygia, you're not making this simple for me to be on the down low.
Well, clearly you would not be breaking any of their laws. Looks are deceiving.
Off with your clothing.
Fine. With that, Charistus rips off in a glorious reveal of his full centaur self and says, I, stout-legged Charistus, am no man except half a man, but also half a horse. So there.
As you reach down to expose yourself, the women, they seem angry as if this is exactly what they expected from human man. And they're relieved when to discover you are not, in fact, a human man, but a centaur. And they say, "What? Why is this stout-legged Charistus?"
It is. I was saving it for a more dramatic occasion, but yes.
We have heard of your name. Your name precedes you.
Yes, well, I expect as much. My deeds are many.
Then this must mean these are your companions.
Indeed.
Betiernim? Yes. Electo? Yes. Xenon?
Aye.
And Lygia?
Smiles.
Yes, it's unfortunate you couldn't recognize them until I had given away my
Perhaps
secret.
whatever your chiton conceals other things outside of your person.
Very well. You may all come onto land, and we shall take you to where these creatures were sighted. And you see now that you're closer that there's sort of a hill behind them, and there seem to be a lot of tents set up. You see that it is all women. You've heard of Amazons. They're well known, and they've sort of spread across different areas of the island. So you've probably encountered Amazons before. You would guess that's what they are. On the top is a pretty big fort. They do not take you to the fort, though. They take you. And you just bring yourselves? Do you bring any of your crew with you? None of the men will be allowed.
No, I don't think so.
I leave complicated instructions to continue the construction of the masthead.
Yeah.
Like,
have some lunch while we're gone. Have a good time. Don't throw anybody overboard. Don't go on the deck. Bye.
They will be very mad if you go on the deck.
The men seem very happy to stay out of the spear's reach of the Amazons, who are sort of glaring at them anytime they approach. However, the Amazons are practicing the Greek sort of xenia, the love of guests and outsiders. They're sending them like fresh food, things like that, onto the boat as you leave, and they do take on the building of this masthead you have given them, Xenon. So they take you not up the hill to the fort, but in fact around about a couple of, I think we cite a league as 7 miles, so just about a league. Sort of clockwise around the island into a forest, and there you see not built as well as sort of some of the other structures, but still nice. What looks like a small shrine to Aphrodite, who the Amazons do venerate, and they say it was here that the sign was sent. Aphrodite seems to be strong in this place. And it was here we saw Aphrodite's sign that of the rabbits multiplying and conquering the hawk.
Has anything changed in recent days that would hearken cause a god's attention to increase upon this island?
I did see a fort. Are you at war or in conflict with someone else?
We are Amazons. We are always at war.
Someone new, specific.
Here on this island? No, not so much. Our queen, Thalestris, keeps a close eye on things. You see, we came here, we were captured, or rather our parents, for the most part, were captured by Scythians. And they took us onto their boats, but we fought back. We captured their ship, but not knowing how to sail ourselves, we enslaved them, forced us to bring us to this island. Now we keep the Scythians, or their children, as farmers on the north end of the island, while we raise the women as warriors here on this end of the island. But in general, there is harmony among us. One of them's younger. She's a little quieter about that, and just says, we like them. They like us, but doesn't really say as much. The older one seems pretty just sort of bored by your question, annoyed that you would even ask it.
For Aphrodite to feel that things must change in this island, it feels that distant arrangement between the two sides of the island may have recently become less distant. Have you any reason to believe that there have been festivals or relations or anything that might give Aphrodite the idea that you should continue on that vein?
The young one blurts out, there are no relations anymore. And the older one turns and points her spear to her and says, sister, I will cut your tongue from your mouth if you can't hold it.
There has been a cease in relations.
Yes, in unscheduled relations, says the old one. In her wisdom, Queen Thalestris has arranged it so that there are no more inconvenient, unplanned relations.
But no, love is not supposed to be planned or according to the scriptures. It should be unplanned and magical and whimsical and sudden and romantic, and to state that love has to be dictated by scrolls and mathematics. No wonder Aphrodite sent this message.
Well, there is love and there is lust, but either way, Aphrodite does not take kindly when the wall is placed between either.
Several of the priestesses of Aphrodite here seem to sort of nod. The older Amazon seems annoyed by your words. And she says, don't try to sway them. We have ways about our island you don't understand. Now I'm going to give you the chance. It seems like there are people here you might be able to persuade if you would like to take on the contest of really speaking for what you're advocating for. Or you could try to convince them the other way that perhaps it is better to sort of plan things out a little bit and not have just anybody falling in love with anybody. You sense that there is a great conflict at play here that you don't yet fully understand.
I turn to my companions and I say to them sort of as an aside, I have traveled this world long and far enough to know that there is no force greater than love. And if it is indeed love at work here, this society will be brought to ruin if we do not allow that love to find its true resolution. I believe we should persuade these people to tell us the truth of what has taken place in terms of their relations, so that we may restore the natural order on this island. What say you all?
Agreed.
As much as I view love a distraction, I agree as well. I have experience in these matters, and such walls will only incur the wrath of Aphrodite in a way that will destroy the way of life on this island.
I suppose it's best if the way of life is not entirely destroyed through them just fighting each other. It would be more helpful to have more sailors.
Always the practical one, Lygia.
Yes.
I appreciate that about you.
The priestesses gather about excitedly, and some of them run the woods to call for others and say, "There's going to be a speech of some sort. These outsiders have brought wisdom from beyond our island to help influence us and perhaps raise our cause." The older Amazon sort of rolls her eyes and settles back. Actually, I take it back. She leaves to perhaps retrieve somebody to speak against you. And this seems to be a very formal occasion. People know you. They know this is a big deal. Grapes are brought out and wine, and you're given seats about sort of in a great, a big amphitheater. And soon a couple of older Amazons arrive who have stags and hawks upon their armor. You recognize signs of Artemis, and they seem ready to speak against any sort of trouble you bring about. Who will rise to face this challenge of arguing that love should not be predetermined and scheduled?
I, stout-legged Choristus, in the name of Athena, will craft the most perfect speech by which to persuade them that they must tell us the truth.
I, Alecto the pure-hearted, using my resolve and spirit, shall step forward with the wisdom of Aphrodite to attempt this challenge.
I, Betir Nim, clever-eyed and with resolve and spirit, shall step forward in the name of Hecate.
I, a suasive-voiced Lygia, I shall call upon the knowledge and wisdom of Athena to convince them that their logic is unsound, and that even Artemis would care for something different.
I, Xenon, will call upon the insight of Hecate to convince both sides, to reason with them, to see that there is only one path forward that maintains either way of life.
Great. They size you up, and then one of the Amazons steps forward and says, "I, Areus, shall speak for the will of Artemis here on this island, and against this foolery and the foolishness of youth that is represented here this day, in spite of all that Aphrodite represents." So this is it sounds like an arts and oration challenge to me. You may use any of the things you said. You may choose to use things you did not list. And I will note that among the chorus, you see familiar faces among the priestesses and warriors who stand about. So you might choose to have some of them help you in your argument as well. Let's see.
And is the chorus, that's a 1d6 or 1d8?
1d6. What's our target number?
It is, I'm about to roll it right here. With the aid of Artemis, it is a 9.
Okay. I'm not spending pathos, but I am calling upon a familiar face in the chorus.
As am I.
As am I.
And I did say I was spending some divine favor, so let's bring it. Ooh.
I will also be using divine favor.
Okay, so 3 of us used a correspond.
Yes, and I see. I'm seeing some successes here. It sounds like some persuasive arguing is about to go. Am I missing a roll?
I believe you mine, and I can't remember for spend divine favor if I put in a 1d4 or if I just put in 1.
Divine favor comes at the end after everything else.
Correct. I just can't remember. So we're using the
You
roll.
just put in how many, and it's automatically going to be a D4. Divine
Perfect.
favor is always 1d4.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Excellent. It seems like we will start with. Let's start this time with Lygia.
Wow, we have very close results.
Yes.
Lygia steps forward, and she's not particularly invested in the emotional aspects, I think, of any of this. She's probably more with the this is just teenagers wanting to boink each other. So she kind of looks at the crowd and says in a somewhat eloquent way, "The passions of youth cannot be dissuaded. You can place two young and vivacious creatures in a field, and they will eventually produce offspring whether you let them or not. It is the power of their lust. Consider the hunt. If you were to prevent all adults from creating children, you would have nothing left. So let them have at it." She sort of waves generally at the two of the youths. What's the worst that will happen?
Your words are seem to sway the crowd against the argument of the priestess of Artemis, who merely says there will be time. People will still be allowed to procreate at the designated time periods in the right place with adult supervision. That will be plenty.
Just be cattle at that point, not wild animals.
Xenon, your argument.
Xenon starts by turning to the priestesses of Athena and says, "I understand your desire for order, and I understand that how this love seems a distraction, but the time for that has passed. Aphrodite's eye has turned to this island, and I know deeply that once she has set her course on unleashing love and lust upon those in a population, it will run rampant until nothing is left of your culture, of your society, of your productivity. So, as Lygia says, let there be love, for if you do not, Aphrodite will make sure there is, and you will not like the consequences."
They say she seems to understand Aphrodite. Yes, she clearly is favored by her or has some interaction. We should listen to her and not to our leaders who have forgotten of Aphrodite's ways. And you can tell your words are convincing them. But also, these people seem to the chorus itself seem to truly really like Aphrodite today. Almost as if they've been tithing to her in great numbers.
And before I move on, I pull a villager out of the crowd, and this Williamina has a story of one such island where Aphrodite's wrath was felt, and said chorus member delves into their archival knowledge and tells a tale of one such island. Once I give her a prompt about the island of Lo, and such and such.
Yes, the people cheer the chorus member on. They say, "Yes, we've never heard this story. We were going to kill this person for crimes we thought they'd done, but now we see that we should let this person live." It is let's see, who's 12, right?
I think we are tied. There's two of us. We're 12.
All right, let's hear from you, Alecto.
Alecto stands, and I think she is using a point of pathos because she is going to reach out with resolve and spirit instead of the arts, and is going to express that youth. As a youth, I have not yet had a moment of affection or the first kiss, and it actually is something that drives me. for love and for future. And I think by stating you cannot do this, you lose so much, because as you know, love lifts us up where we belong, with eagles high, just like Aphrodite would want us to be. So instead of thinking of rules and regulations, you have to listen to your heart, truly. And I think she's a little bit embarrassed by admitting these things. And so that is the point of pathos. And of course, Aphrodite assists her by making her youth glow in beauty.
Priestess Aphrodite attempts to rejoin you with, well, I say love makes us act like we are fools and throw our lives away for one special day. But your words have already swayed even some of the supporters of Artemis, who are touched that you are, it sounds to them, virginal and protected by Artemis. And they see that perhaps these two, Aphrodite and Artemis, don't necessarily have to be in conflict, even if they seem that way in this moment. Betty or Nim?
Betir steps forward and says, I understand the commitment one makes to a goddess, to be her priestess and follow her ways. My mother, Medusa, was a follower and a priestess of Athena, and but was not given a choice whether or not she may remain celibate, but was expected to be against her will. And so when it came time that my mother met my father, she cast away her celibacy. My point being that the goddesses, if they desire such a commitment from their followers, let that be voluntary. There is no joy from enforcing people to follow these rules. It means nothing. Instead, let people choose to make that commitment to the goddesses, either one.
Again, your words sway even more people. The priestesses of Artemis say, choice? You choose? What is this, Athens? We are Amazons. We blindly follow our authority figures that are appointed by the gods. That is the way. Why would anyone want to do anything else? Ruin shall fall upon us. But everybody at this point's like cheering along, and they're like lighting small torches and like sort of singing songs about Eros and a little bit of agape, but mostly Eros. And who is next?
I believe that I am. So Charistus is already standing on the dais where the shrine to Aphrodite is. And he, as his eyes scan the crowd, starts to be transformed by the rest of them. He eyes one person in particular and brings her up on the dais with him. He asks her name, and she says, "It's Vanish X Zone." And he says to her, "Vanish X Zone, you must listen carefully to me. I am about to let the wisdom and words of Athena enter me. When I do, you must dance to those words. Dance like the future and fate of your island depend upon them." Then I stand there and I close my eyes and I wait solemnly for them to enter me, and I begin to speak. "The power of love is a curious thing. Makes one man weep, makes another man sing."
Woman.
And I like, if there was like a camera, I would look down the barrel of it and I say, "Or woman, change a hawk to a little white dove. More than a feeling, that's the power of love." I go on for several verses, and the mighty dancing of Vanish X Zone becomes more and more frenetic until they actually catch fire from all of their impassioned movements and burn alive on the dais with me there in a tribute to the gods.
Yes.
Hadn't
You when you
invented
first
stop, drop, and roll yet.
No.
when you first speak, everybody in the amphitheater is staring down at the center of the amphitheater. So when you speak from the dais, they all turn and are shocked to see you and one of their friend, one of the people they know there upon the dais. And then when that person bursts into flames and vanishes in some sort of zone of Aphrodite, they are amazed. They aren't even sad for their friend, for they know their friend has been called to join Aphrodite in whatever cause she has for her or him in the afterlife. So yes, they seem very convinced, but the speech making's not yet done, I believe.
No, that's everyone.
That is everybody.
Uh-huh.
They are, in fact, entirely convinced.
That's all we got.
So the Priestess of Aphrodite at this point don't even try to. They can tell they've lost the crowd completely. Each of you has spoken the words already in the heart of these people. They can feel that Aphrodite is like present here, and that in the moment it's against their favor. They withdraw quickly, and you see them running back toward the city. You suspect to call for aid or more people. But the people around you cheer your name and say, like, finally, these heroes have come to right things, to help us rise up against the queen and her terrible choices. Like, we may have followed her once, but now she's gone too far. And they seem ready to revolt, and they seem to just assume you understand what's going on.
I do like a little like, can we circle up for just a I am getting the impression from the people that they are expecting us to lead a coup.
Yeah, I was mostly just fishing for more information.
That's definitely not what it sounded like when you commenced the dancing accompaniment.
Did we?
I thought I was pretty clear.
I felt like we were very clear with our communication.
We were too clear. We were too inspiring. That is the problem. We were so
too
consumed with the
inspiring.
message that
We do this all the time.
Good
This
cop,
happens
bad
every
cop
island.
thing where one of us is just terrible and makes a good argument for the other side indirectly.
So they want us to lead a coup. I'm not particularly interested in that.
maybe we can just reason with her. Maybe the queen had a bad day and doesn't understand that.
Look,
that
I suspect she would be interested in some sort of challenge by combat. She is the priestess of Artemis.
The person who aided Xenon in your story, Hiroshipus, Hiroshipus overhears this and says, "Do you not know what the queen has done?"
No, that's
not
what we
from
were.
So we're hearing
trying
about
to
the bunnies
suss
and the
out.
hawks and the.
Yes.
He has captured Eros himself in the top of the lighthouse with the aid of Artemis.
What?
Eros, Aphrodite's son?
Yes. And
Well,
The very
there's an
good-looking
idiot.
man that doesn't wear much clothing.
yes, sometimes a very childlike being.
Why didn't you open with that?
So is love now dead until we rescue it?
I think it's
Is that-
captured, Electo.
We are
never
not
really been
allowed to tell visitors that, so we will be punished by death. But now that you've agreed to be our champions, we know that you shall defend us from being put to death.
Sure. Why not?
I agree to try to free Eros. That's something I will agree to do.
They're going to go about directly freeing Eros, everybody! And the crowd
I-
cheers.
Me, I did not say the rest of us.
Sure.
I'm a fan. I would actually
Why
love
not?
to get it.
I would like to hear more from. There was the young woman who clearly had some situation that she personally experienced. I would like to hear the details from her about that, which was kind of what we were all going for in the first place, before we make that determination.
Yes.
What
It's
happened?
But
Why is the? Oh, I'm so sorry, Charistus. You go first. Wise and of 4 legs. You should start.
No, that wasn't me that you were. It was the voice of fate, I believe,
Mm.
that you were attempting to speak over.
She seems a little confused by what woman you're talking about, and says, "Do you mean Agave, the queen's daughter?"
The young one who
The-
said that there would no more liaisons.
Thereby implying that there had been past liaisons. And
That
I looked through the crowd and I was like, there she is.
Yes, that is Agave, the younger guard
You're
from
so
before.
sweet.
Tell us your story, knowing that love is indeed something that we have protected with our words here today.
Are you planning on fermenting revolt against my mother?
That's no, not the.
We're looking for
That's maybe-
information.
There's
Not the
plan
island.
Alpha, Beta. That's maybe like Gamma or Delta is to foment revolt.
Very well. I will tell you my story if you wish. I, like many of us, am both Amazonian and Scythian. We are all descended from our mothers and our fathers. And though they were enemies, most of us do not feel the past as much as our elders. And it may have upset my mother when I fell in love with a Scythian poet, and she may have followed me where I engaged in certain activities in the Lighthouse. And it may be that our activities were either caused by or attracted Eros himself. And perhaps you could say I might be somewhat responsible for my mother's outrage, but you cannot put upon me my mother's choice to call upon her bond with Aphrodite and appoint the great buzzard hawk Toxin, appoint the tower, guarding Eros and keeping him there till he agrees to schedule all future affairs and attractions on this island.
So this entire problem is because you have an overbearing mother.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, that basically sums it up. Thank you for putting it in better
Anon bends down to her level and she says, "We are not blaming you for your mother's decisions. In fact, we merely want to unravel the web that has been woven from her overzealous care for you. Trust me, I know about overbearing mothers."
This love.
Well, better
you
to have
felt.
To be honest, since Eros has been captured, I no longer suffer the longing I felt for Ibycus the poet. I miss him mildly. I wish he was here, but I no longer desire him. Maybe I'm happier now.
What are you? Look into your heart. He was, or they were, a poet. What was that? What was something that they said
Regardless
that made
of
you
whether you're
start
happier now,
that?
which you probably are, it's not really fair that Lygia is like clearly
No, just
interrupted
pushing.
Alecto. You probably are happier, but your mother is making poor choices on behalf of her people, which means at this point she's just being a bad queen.
And love, and just like pokes over Lygia's arms. And love's
And-
very important.
Also, love is
Also-
very important.
Was this love? Do you remember it to be true?
Well, I remember believing a great many promises that Ibycus made that now I seem mildly unreasonable and that he's unlikely to live up to, but yet I was happy. I was happy when he
Sounds
said
like
them.
true love to me.
The veracity of the love bears no weight in this conversation. She can have Eros, she can have Agape, she can have whatever, but Eros should not be locked in that tower.
No.
True.
Not only that, but leaving him there, the wrath of his mother, Aphrodite, will be
Bad. It will be very bad.
it would be very bad once she discovers where he is.
I also
It
find
seems
both
to
of those
me-
two gods helpful for my endeavors. So
It seems to me we are at a road that forks in two directions, if you will.
Hmm.
On the one hand, we could go and try to free Eros with our brains and wits, and if need be, our blood. On the other, we may try to persuade the queen that if this love that the two of them held was true, we might get her to change her mind and free Eros of her own accord.
We could always do both.
A quest of true love? Perhaps if they proved your love, your mother queen would be wrong, and then Eros would be free, and everyone could love again.
You'll have the opportunity to choose quickly. We can go to the Lighthouse quickly and find Ibycus and see if there's something to be done there, or to my mother, because she's arrived. And you look up to see what looks like about 100 Amazons on horseback tearing over the hill.
Wow.
And I think we're going to take a quick break and then come back to find out what you choose here. We have a couple
read out donations.
Yeah, I do want to read out a couple of donations here. Reloading them now. So we have from Hero Sheep, roll for it. Bah! From Vanish X Zone, for community theater, for arts, for glory. 'Tis not enough to help the feeble up, but to support them after. Which is a quote from Timon of Athens, Act 1, Scene 1.
Nice.
Thank you, Vanish X Zone. Your sacrifice is greatly appreciated.
William says, great to see you all today. And Sacrificial Peon, number 69, says, nice. Thank you so much for those donations, for being part of our chorus. Our heroes have, it seems like they've used a number of their bonds already, so they will make use of those. I will also point out that it looks like, as far as tithing, that Aphrodite is currently favored, but Artemis is still very present and may be kind of ticked off about some of the stuff that's about to happen. We'll find out. So I think we'll be back in about 5.
All right, we'll be right back. kind of hoping to catch the Claudia
Yeah.
countdown dance. We got a little bit of it. It was pretty great. Welcome back, everybody. Hope you had a relaxing and refreshing break. Let us jump back into the arrival of the Queen as we had dithered.
Yes, you've still got time. They're a bit away, but our heroes have arrived here on an island. They've probably picked up on the island's name is Velos. They received signs from Aphrodite and Artemis, and in fact encountered these sort of worshippers of Aphrodite who feel the Queen has gone too far, and the Queen's daughter is here and has revealed that in fact the Queen has captured somehow, we don't know how, Eros in the top of this lighthouse on the north end of the island, is keeping him there as a way to kind of keep the youth from procreating and causing all sorts of problems that leadership has to deal with. And that people aren't really able to feel Eros on this island right now, or at least the daughter can't. So they were kind of deciding whether they were going to go to see the Queen or go to this lighthouse, but it seems they're going to have to decide quickly because on horseback seem to be some angry possible supporters of Artemis, clad in shields holding spears, rushing toward them. And they're about half a Krellin league away, which is about 3.5 miles. So
It's a 5K. Stout-legged Christus, what shall we do?
I believe that the best we could do for this island would be to persuade the Queen without further bloodshed. To do so, we will have to gain audience with her, and to do that, as she is quickly approaching with her guard, I believe we need to find a way to infiltrate her entourage.
Wait, you're suggesting we pretend to be one of them, not just talk to her now?
Oh, well, if you think they're coming to talk, then that's we can also try the direct approach, but it sounds like she's coming with knives bared, so to speak.
I suspect if we best her in a contest of arms, she would be willing to listen to us.
Well, I will not attempt to persuade her with arms, but attempt to get to her by other means.
Very well, then we should follow your lead.
Mm-hmm. Subterfuge?
You can each go with what your heart tells you.
I am good at pretending to be something I am not.
All right, so it sounds like you sort of have a chance to set the ground here. So what you're describing, Christus, is that are you going to, well, tell me exactly what you would like the group to do.
So I want us to try to basically get out past the Queen's entourage and to the Queen herself so that we can have an audience with her without bloodshed. And I can see multiple ways of going about that. But basically, I'm thinking of a more sneaky, subterfuge sort of way to get to her.
Christus, we brought great honor on Athena in our last journey. Could we not bring tidings of said triumph to the Queen?
Yes, absolutely, if you think so.
Perhaps several of us should distract the Queen and her entourage so that you, being one of the more stealthy of us, might approach on quiet hoof.
All right. This sounds to me like a craft and reason challenge. A couple of more questions that I think I need to know in the setup. Are you going to keep the sort of worshippers of Aphrodite? They're still milling about nervously. Are you going to keep them here, or are you going to shoo them away?
I think we should shoo them away.
Okay, so it's just going to be
we're trying to avoid like an all-out war.
Okay. So you're sort of in a copse of olive trees just to set the environment. They're not real thick, but you might be able to hide among them if you needed. And the temple's set within that copse. So just to set that. I'm going to call this a craft and reason. The chorus has tithed Artemis, so I think she is she's sort of present and paying attention to this. But Aphrodite is as well. So if any of you have a bond with Aphrodite, you might choose to make use of that here. Bring up my sheet here. Just a second. She's a little annoyed, so let's see. And the you can hear the Amazons shouting. You can see in the very back of them there is a woman like with more armor and like a pointer arrow on the top of her helmet. You would guess is the queen. And let's see. This is going to be, like I said, craft and reason. Is quite a mighty force, and they are not to be trifled with. The target is 13. So who will meet this challenge and join Charistus in his possibly very foolish plan to infiltrate an entire regiment of Amazons?
I, clever-eyed Batir Nim, follower of Hecate and daughter of Medusa and Poseidon, shall lend my resolve and spirit to this task.
All right. So it sounds like you are going to spend some pathos and like suffer a bit to help with this by choosing a different domain.
I, a suasive-voiced Ligeia, shall call upon my arts and oration to create some trickery through my voice, as well as to bring forth the... I will actually, I think, spend some divine favor of Hera, the cunning of Hera.
Excellent. Who else will rise to aid or directly contest in this?
Ialecto of strong-limbed, would like to call upon the divine favor of Hera and her cunning. Ligeia's, the bond of Ligeia and her stand-uppiness, and then my own pathos and resolve to spread the dust of the fallen Athena statue to try.
Wow, so you're going to use your this mighty item that's already well known. You're going to use it in this contest.
I feel like forget me dust is a great idea. Do you know what D this is? A D10 or?
So tell me you're using it. Tell me what purpose you're using this for.
I am hoping to stand upon something tall and for the wind to blow behind me and for me to spread my dust as people are running forward.
And what effect?
Athena
what do you
blow about?
What effect do you hope this dust has upon them?
More as a destruction of a halting of their forward progress, where they instead of lashing at us with spears, instead perhaps will give us a moment to escape.
So would you sort of strategic use, would you say?
Yes,
I'll give you that. This is Athena. So it's dust from Athena's statue, the very statue that Athena embodied. I will give you a D10. I don't think it's like it's not directly Athenian, but it's close enough for. So let's give that
Athena
a D10.
Adjacent.
Yes, Athena adjacent.
It's a battle of goddesses, and I thought I'd bring one in.
I don't know if that's,
All right.
That's a choice.
I, Ironbender Xenon, who honors Hephaestus, shall tackle this challenge and draw upon the ingenuity of Hephaestus to spur the fires and torches around me, to lend credence to my reason.
Very well. It sounds like everybody is entering this contest. So make your rolls as the Amazons come pouring down the hill.
Wow, I missed it by 1.
This
And
is
I
a
did-
challenging role, but our heroes are bringing a lot of their resources to bear, including a mighty trophy from the last adventure.
And I did
And-
draw upon the chorus to help me with the fire
Yes.
demonstration.
Yes. Let's see. I see 4 rolls.
I'm sorry, I'm a little bit slow.
No, I'm just making sure I didn't miss one. But let's get Lygia. Let's hear how things went for you.
Lygia suffers. Her inspiration in that moment was not a strength, and she sets herself to sort of go with many of the followers of Aphrodite, and to sort of basically her plan is, we shall use them as bait to divert the attention of the followers of Artemis and the Queen. And so she sort of calls upon the winds and crafts around her and a few of them a sort of illusionary disguise to make them look like the Scythians, like they're all running away off into the woods. Except I think all that does is just anger the Artemisans, and so they just probably start shooting at them with arrows and spears. It doesn't go well. Some of them might die.
Yes, their arrows shoot, and you hear followers of Aphrodite. A couple of them scream out.
Well, you are a distraction.
Yes. So you suffer in this contest.
I do.
Who is next here?
I
Looks
believe
like
I am.
yes, Charistus.
And to be clear, I got really lucky on this roll. I rolled a 10 on a d10.
Yeah, our heroes have done very well on this roll, I think.
Charistus calls on his
Way to rub it
bond
in.
with Xenon to forge him a suitable disguise. And so she builds for him like an Amazonian warrior, like the whole costume and whatnot. And including for his back half, like a second person coming up out of him. That's like sort of like a scarecrow kind of thing. So that he is able to appear to be 2 people, walk, and he is just able to casually slip into their ranks and get close to the queen.
So you look like just like 2 people standing there, or yeah.
I mean, based on the quality of Xenon's construction, it's pretty persuasive, yes.
Yes. Well, it does apparently succeed, and the Amazons just rush past you. You seem like 2 people who are not particularly worthy of battle, I suppose. And they continue looking for the interlopers, the mighty centaur hero and his band who is supposedly come here. Who's next?
I believe that would be me. But here Nim steps forward and says loudly, Amazonians, it is I, Batir Nim. Although I am a follower of Hecate, I do devote 1 month of celibacy to your goddess Artemis every year. And so I say to you, let us talk and be friends. Because I believe there is a logical fallacy in your queen's beliefs. I'm sure it goes well.
They seem more impressed by your dedication to 1 month of celibacy than they are to the logic, which they still appreciate, but they just don't quite get into. And
I should go into detail then.
You see several of them sort of turn around and look to the queen, like perhaps we shouldn't slaughter these people immediately. And they begin to peel off a little bit, but there's still more behind them charging on.
I believe that's me next. So after the opening salve of words from Batir, Xenon steps forward and is looking very sooty from the quick forging that just happened, but I think that lends to their to their credibility in this particular moment. And And as mentioned, Xenon has weapons and draws them in a respectful manner in deference to the followers of Artemis. But they have a little trick where they can light the sledgehammer on fire. So it just lends a little bit. And while Batir is speaking, Xenon arranges with a few of the chorus members who are around, or one of them, to also flare their torches at the same moment. And so Xenon times this with followers of Artemis. I understand what it is to look for focus. I too have walked away from the pleasures of the flesh and studied with Hephaestus and shed the nomenclature of my gender to seek a higher level of craftsmanship. May we, Batir and I, speak with you and your leaders.
Yes, you gain their attention and their respect, and you get the sense that Artemis would likely be pleased that you've avoided directly fighting them in this moment. So she may not overall be happy with how this has gone so far, but there's a measure of pause there with your words. And the chorus themselves seem to kind of remind the Amazons, hey, we are all the same people, even these worshippers of Aphrodite. All right, one left, is that right? Two left?
Yes, just me. Alecto rises and focuses on herself and perhaps knows that she is working against what she believes in, which is not fighting, and instead thinks of Ligeia and what Ligeia
and I should say,
do.
Alecto, at this point, the queen herself is kind of, the others have peeled off, and the queen herself is sort of riding up toward you.
Fantastic. And I think, as always, I am worried about the queen's guard, because a queen has a right hand. And I reach into my bag for the Dust from the Fallen Athena statue, who has saved another queen in its time, that statue. And I throw that dust in the air, and hoping the wisdom of that Athena would spread and let us have a moment of just conversation between not philosophers, perhaps, as we discuss fallacies, as we've said about, and Hera, the divine, flows all that dust around so everyone could get hit with the sparkle of Athena's dust, and perhaps a little more wisdom. Perhaps it is seen as angel dust, but perhaps not.
You scatter the limestone from the statue of Athena into the wind, and perhaps from a certain angle it might appear to sparkle, but for the most part it's just inhaled into the lungs of the sort of Amazons nearby. But they cough, and lacking some air, it gives them pause. But the queen herself sees in a moment. She sees the image of Athena form. She's at the perfect angle to see that statue just for a moment in the air regain its shape. And she, though is not a direct worshiper of Athena, she often prays to her for strategy in battle, and it makes her question the wisdom of not stopping for a moment to find out what's going on. And she calls to her women and says, halt! Let us see more about what's happening here. Perhaps we are too hasty to kill these interlopers outright. Seems I may have been mistaken. Perhaps our priestesses were mistaken in their intentions.
I thank you so much, Queen, for halting and conversing with us. We'd love to have a chamber with you, perhaps right here in between the two lands. And I think she stands upon what was that discussion space, and hopefully everyone comes to join her in discussion, because I think this is about all the fancy words she knows.
I join her, and as I do, I yank off my disguise and say, "It was I, stout-legged Choristus, all along."
They seem amazed less at you than at Xenon's craftsmanship. But a couple of them nod at Xenon. And actually, one of them looks at Xenon and sort of, and then she just seems disappointed, like maybe she's gonna flirt with Xenon, but just can't feel it. Sort of sighs. And they all look back to all of you, who I assume are you all gathered there in the amphitheater?
Mm-hmm.
Like
the queen says,
comes back. There's like a little smattering of blood from the people that died on her.
Oh my god.
Yeah, you can hear people in the woods wailing and weeping at the loss of a particularly beloved member of their circle.
Tragic.
She was the one who had combed the lamb's hair when they had a ceremony and put ribbons on it.
I'm like a little bit more sad. Just a little. It's moderately tragic.
Yeah. And there's a little baby lamb crying over her
God.
body.
We're not sad about the girl, whoever died. Just the fact that the lamb is sad.
Just a sad lamb. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
I want to be very clear.
But here in the amphitheater, the queen, she says, "Why do you interfere? Don't you understand what it takes to be a queen? To keep my people ready for battle? I am 200 years old, and I have looked after these people for most of that time, since the Scythians killed my own mother. You think I have the freedom to just let people love who they love and create progeny with who they would, to not be battle ready? You think I can afford to have my own daughter not be ready to take the mantle of rulership because some poet promises her that he will fight 1,000 battles for her, when we know that he could probably not fight one?"
Your Highness, we recognize the incredible task which you must fulfill every day in leading your people. However, we bring you news that to attempt to trap a god as you have is folly and can only lead to your demise.
Only wish to keep him here until he agrees to not just behave like a spoiled child and cause whoever to fall in love with whoever. I don't plan to keep him trapped forever, only long enough for him to agree to put some wisdom into his thoughts and confer, perhaps schedule these things. So like bears or other creatures beloved of Artemis, they are only create progeny certain times of the year that we can plan for.
Xenon steps forward and says, "Queen Philistrius, well, your plan makes sense under normal circumstances. From my personal experience, Eros is encouraged by the great Aphrodite, and by keeping him thusly, you will only incur the wrath of a more powerful god, and may threaten the very livelihood of the women you seek to protect."
And yet Artemis has granted me a great boon. Her hawk guards Eros now. Would I not be upsetting Aphrodite to turn my back on this plan?
Those who come between two gods rarely profit.
You mentioned that this poet had spoke of slaying 1,000 enemies, yet you believe could not slay one. If we could get this poet to, in fact, slay an enemy, would you recant on your decision and free Eros from your tower / lighthouse? It's a lighthouse.
Supposed to show me that Ibycus the Scythian, who would rather sit around writing poems about rainbows and flowers, could slay an enemy of some report? He could attain some glory in battle? If that's the contest you wish to take, then certainly I'll take that wager.
Charistus, not to suggest that maybe you're not intelligent, but
Go on.
This seems like fighting against the ocean, convincing someone to be something that they are not. would it not be in your benefit to have him stay at home, raise the child that your daughter and him produce, so that she could go out and better rule the kingdom, not distracted by children and those things?
Well, if that were the stakes that were presented to us, then I would certainly go with it.
I like this
simply-
idea. I like this idea. In fact, I say this. If you can help Ibycus the poet defeat Artemis's champion, the great buzzard hawk, on top of the lighthouse, and if it is by his hands the hawk is undone, slain or chased off the top of the unclimbable tower, if Ibycus's hand can do this, then I shall stay out of the way.
I have a question.
Yes.
Does his hand still need to be attached to his body when it does it?
I care not.
good
If you rid
question.
me of Ibycus, you rid me of part of my problems.
He could survive without a hand.
Agave seems upset, but considers it.
Why?
Let's make that plan epsilon.
So you're saying
Perhaps.
that yes, it
Yes.
does not need to be attached to his body when the creature is slain or driven off by his hand. It would still count.
Yes.
Great.
Let us engage this poet to fight this hawk.
He can write with one hand, correct?
It is Epsilon. We shall discuss it once Epsilon has rolled this
Yeah.
way. We have many options. The gods do smile on us.
Yeah.
I think purely love will figure this out.
If you believe that Aphrodite will support you in cutting the hand off of this poet, and you achieve victory that way, then I will allow it. I care not. One way or the other, I accept your challenge.
I think I could convince him.
Oh, there we go. Easy peasy lemon squeezy.
Fantastic.
We require an introduction to the poet. Can anyone tell us where he is?
One of the priestesses of Aphrodite laughs and says, "He sits at the bottom of the lighthouse, attempting to write poetry without Eros. They are quite terrible. They're mostly pantoums, full of structure and no feeling. He cries at night."
All
This-
right.
This should be easy. So we head to the lighthouse.
Can't believe they'd strip a poet of his feelings as if they'd strip the wings off a hawk.
But they did not strip him of his feelings, otherwise he would not weep at the base of the lighthouse. He remains. He just has no words with which to express his feelings. Really, rather hopeful.
Let's talk
sounds
strategy.
like a huge problem.
Let's talk strategy. Short of cutting off his hand.
I just wanted to
and using
be
it by-
very certain what the stipulations for this challenge was. How literal was she by the word hand?
It's good to check.
And very is
Yeah.
the answer.
Let us hope that we might inspire him. If all he need do is fight a hawk, then we will.
By that logic, we could also just hold his hand while he does it.
Oh,
He
Perhaps,
needs
Xenon,
only
you could
to.
construct a contraption in which you are controlling his hand, and it merely appears as if he is doing it.
While I do enjoy the sound of that, I feel with his pathetic weeping at the base of the lighthouse, we might at least allow him the chance to, rather than write poetry, live out the great epic of his love
Yes,
for
that
her
does seem
favor.
fair.
If that fails, I am happy to build any automaton we believe may help us on the cause.
So
He
we
needs
start
only
with
to
fear
slay the
and
beast,
inspiration.
I feel
He-
like he must do this of his own volition, or even if he does manage to woo the princess, he will have a mother-in-law that is wretched for all time.
That's true. If he dies, what's our plan?
We release Eros and flee the island.
You're here. But he won't.
I mean, we'll already be at the lighthouse. So I do think
we can find ways to help him, as he is only required to slay the hawk.
Or
He is
drive
not
off.
required to subdue it
He's
Or
not
weaken
even.
it
drive it off.
anyway. Just the final
or drive
blow.
it off.
Yeah, so maybe
Yes.
perhaps his words can make the hawk weep with mourning, and he'll just leave.
You know,
Sadness is a powerful
That's Colin.
tool.
I feel like we've got this.
Yeah.
You know, we'll pull it out.
There are many avenues to victory.
We're all very good at what we do, and yeah,
Let us find the poet.
Yeah.
What
Are we
is
there?
important is that
So
while
you have this conversation, I imagine, while traveling north. You are offered horses. Does Charistus ride a horse?
I have my own horse.
Okay. You travel about 10 Krellin leagues to the along the shore toward the north end of the island. And you the island's kind of shaped like an arrow a bit. And the lighthouse at the tip is at the tip. As you approach, as you move north, you notice farmland, and there seem to be men sort of farming. Most of them bow in deference as you pass. And as you get close to the lighthouse, you can see from probably a Krellin league away the shape of a huge buzzard hawk on top of the thing. Its wingspan is probably about 10 horses.
Oh.
And it sort of looks around. It has its claws curled about. Like there's not room in the lighthouse for the thing. It's big enough.
Oh.
And you see a light coming from within the lighthouse. You see no windows other than the sort of place the light can emerge. No windows or doors on the lighthouse. Appears to be rough rock. And yeah, in the distance you do see a man in a sort of just white cloth laying about in a field of flowers.
He must be a poet.
That is a very large hawk. I did not know we were talking about a hawk of that size.
Like I
Well-
said, his hand doesn't need to be attached to his body.
it is important that by appeasing one god, we do not anger another. If we do not complete the task with some modicum of respect for both gods, we will be the ones who find ourselves at the middle.
True. And that's never fun.
No.
I shall, if it's amenable, approach the poet.
I would like
we
to
all?
approach
Than
with Batir.
We
Betty,
all
you
follow
and me.
Batir's lead on it.
Have you come to kill me in my suffering?
No, I bring excellent news from the queen. We, as a group of heroes, have persuaded her to allow you to do holy battle with said hawk for your love, for your great love of her daughter, Agave. Good news.
You promised to slay thousands, but only slaying one will prove your love for all time and write it as a great love into the stars.
I remember saying that, and I remember feeling that, but I don't feel it anymore. And when the feeling's gone, the promise seems difficult to keep.
Artists.
Well, I could maybe read a poem to the bird. Perhaps I could impress it with some descriptive pantoums or a villanelle. I
Technically,
invented
you
that.
are also merely allowed to drive the beast off. So perhaps, I don't know, a rousing song would make it want to leave.
How would I even get up to the top of the tower? It's impossible.
We are but helpful travelers, and a part of our quest is now your quest. Love is pure and sacred, and I think you do have those feelings, and all you have to do is reach deep down and find them again.
If you have not been told, this lighthouse is the prison of one Eros, who has stopped spreading love around. So it is unlikely that you will be successful in your poetry unless you do drive this hawk away from guarding him.
Rumors had as such. A couple of other Scythians tried to climb the tower the other day, and they said they felt quite lusty when climbing upward.
Interesting.
That would make sense. It's like there's a hole in me where once my great motivation did lie. I remember it. I can read my poems that I wrote about the princess and her beauty, and I still see the beauty with my eyes, but I don't feel it. I feel disconnected from it.
You must ascend the tower so that you can feel it again, and so that you can complete what it is you are destined to do. Find your greatness in defeating this hawk.
Xenon draws their pick and their sledgehammer and says, "You have my tools."
You have my staff.
Will you help get me up there? I neglected to mention the thousands of tiny birds that attacked the two Scythians who tried to climb it.
That's a
birds you
did
say.
neglect.
Yes, smaller ones, children of the great hawk. They turn to arrows and pierce anybody who attempts to climb the tower.
Birds don't like fire, right?
No.
Nobody
not a
likes
fan.
fire except for cold people. Prometheus.
Oh, he liked fire. I
He
don't
doesn't
think
like
likes
birds
it.
very much, though, anymore.
True.
Is this a challenge? Can we sound
Yes.
off? Or...
But we're right at 8, so I think we will. I think this is what we're going to do. We are going to combine this getting up the tower with the however you choose to deal with this hawk with the poet into one mighty epic contest that shall
Yes.
That sounds good.
they'll determine the fate of this island
Tower of
of
the Hawk.
love and
Oh,
everything.
We're already there. Okay.
Yeah.
I do
Make a
have.
grown man weep.
I want to take a quick break, and I have a couple of donations to read out. And now we have that means a couple of members of the chorus are joining.
Ooh, I got 3, it looks
yes.
like, to add.
Amazon delivery person says, "Be there in 2 days. Hear me, but never see me." And Demolition says, "Insert witty comment here."
So witty.
So witty.
He said something incredibly witty. And we shall return after a quick break.
All right, we'll be right back.
Bye.
Hi, everybody.
Hello.
Hello. We've returned to the final battle of tonight's story. Yes, for those of you who are just joining us so far, we are here playing Agon, a epic tale of mythological proportions, and we are also raising funds for Driftwood Players, a local theater company in the Seattle area, nonprofit. So if you are able to do so, !donate will get you that link in chat, and you can help us out in this final battle, because we're probably gonna need it. I don't actually know which god I want you to support more, so I'll just hand it over to Tony.
Yes, well, I can tell you what they are supporting, which is they are all on board with Aphrodite. So, which seems to be the side our heroes have chosen as well. Not all, I should say. Artemis, 16%. So, still has some support. I feel like I'm giving election results. Still waiting to hear from Macedonia.
The exit polling on the Lighthouse is going to be crucial.
Yeah.
Cyprus, is always kind of a swing island, so...
We've sort of arrived at this big, important final battle that happens on each island, one way or the other, often unpredictable in exactly how. And I'm vamping as I look for my battle sheet. There
It's on
we
the
go.
screen, but that doesn't help you.
Yes. There we go. So here's to just get us where our heroes are. Our heroes have been, they sort of, Charistus decided the challenge should be to get this poet to kill an enemy, and the queen chose the enemy, which is this gigantic buzzard hawk. Toxon is its name. Probably not Artemis's child because she doesn't have children, but probably reared it. And sent it as a boon to help trap Eros. Artemis, not a real big fan of like the complexities of Eros style love. I would say erotic love, but it's taken on a slightly more salacious meaning in modern times. But so yes, our heroes have decided they will, in fact, attempt to get this poet up to the top. They don't necessarily seem to have a full plan for what's going to happen when they get to the top, but that's okay. I'm sure they'll figure it out just fine. You're at the base of the tower. Ibycus has himself said, and some of the Amazons have followed some of the like worshippers of Aphrodite, even a few like Scythians sort of who are interested in seeing what happens, have sort of come along with you to watch this this giant contest. And so the thing Ibycus told you maybe you didn't know is not only is there Toxon, the giant buzzard hawk at the top with a wingspan of 10 horses, there are in fact Toxon's children, which are small birds that will fly around and turn into arrows, piercing anybody who attempts to climb the tower. The first part of that battle is going to be it's pretty much just trying to get some advantage, probably by either climbing the tower or if not, however you choose to do it. So who will find a way to join this battle? You'll get to choose your domain.
I, stout-legged Charistus, scion of Chiron, will see this poet to the top of the tower with the aid of the townspeople.
I, Electo, both pure-hearted and strong-limbed, using the guide of Charistus the Stout-Legged, will get that poet to that tower using my net and resolve.
What? Who else?
Go ahead.
I, clever-eyed Batir, daughter of Medusa and Poseidon and follower of Hecate, will lend my spirit and resolve.
I, assuasive voice Ligeia, will turn the birds to our side, for I am of their kind, of a kind. And I will use my arts and oration to do so, and I will call upon one of my bonds with Beter Nim to add their name to my ferocity.
Ironbender Xenon, will do the work with my tools and find a way to make this lighthouse climbable by all. And I shall call upon the wisdom of Athena to make sure that the harms that befell previous attempts shall not befall this attempt.
Very well. Well, the raptors, the raptor children of Tucson, will spin. I've already started to spin in a cloud about the tower at your approach. This is a perilous challenge, this part, which means if you suffer, you're going to suffer and lose some pathos as well. So I'm going to set this, or you guys get to, each hero will choose sort of the domain you take on for this clash. I'm also going to add that Hermes has been kind of peevish about you maybe not helping out the farmers as much as he hoped in this challenge. So he picks now to make this a little more challenging on you.
Hold on, we're helping.
Different island.
We're helping
a whole
one
different
farmer.
island. Those Greek gods.
He thinks
Fine.
it's pretty. He thinks it's pretty hilarious that you've chosen to get this poet up. It's very complicated, the kind of thing Hermes likes, and
Fine.
he just
then,
wants to make
then
it a
I'm
little
gonna
more
call him my
entertaining.
divine favor with Athena, just to rub it in his face.
And
it's a
it is
14.
it's gonna be a 14.
Yeah. All right. What's your name die, Janine?
My name die
Yeah.
is a D6.
Okay. So I add one d6 for your name die.
I am going to
Bonds.
also use my magic parchment since we're going back to previous islands all of a sudden. I will use my magic parchment to help navigate the cloud of the swarm of these birds.
I was like, I'm not even sure if this is possible for me.
I'm going to call upon both my bond with Charistus and one of the assembled followers of Aphrodite because heavy work requires many hands.
So I need to know from you, Tony, how much my parchment will be worth in this role.
Okay. Explain to me one more time how you're going to use it.
So I am going to analyze the swarm of birds and construct basically a map by which of all of the steps and timings by which they can be safely avoided.
I see. I'll give that. You're not specifically using it to replicate anything, so I'm not going to give it a D12, but it is. Give it a D8.
Yeah. Okay.
And Charistus, your name die is a D6?
Yes.
I just realized it was actually almost impossible for me to pass this one. Oops.
Mm-hmm.
Hey! But that's why we say it before we know the challenge.
Yep.
All right.
Well, that was a swing and a miss.
This, yeah.
I see some rolls have come in, so let's see how this goes.
Oh my.
I think I believe I begin.
Yeah, it was technically possible for me.
So Alecto, with both pure-hearted and strong-limbed, was going to get that poet up the tower. So they used the net to sweep the poet into the net, put it over her shoulder, and was going to climb the tower using the stout-legged as a guide. And sure enough, they got about halfway, and Alecto was reaching for one of the pieces, and I believe that Bird pecked around each finger, stabbing each individually, receiving pathos, as she then fell back. And so both her and the poet fell back down.
Yes, you fall, and the crowd gasps as you sort of slip and begin to look at each other like perhaps we have Perhaps we had too much faith in these heroes. They're already falling upon themselves.
It's a really big bird.
Stout-legged Charistus, he has the wisdom of Apollo, and he understands the behaviors of animals, and he is able to chart the swarming of each individual bird that's there, and also the path that they must take. And he speaks it onto his parchment and prepares a perfect set of instructions. He calls from one of the townspeople that's there. He brings them to him and asks their name. They say they are Hero Sheep, daughter of Arforit. And he tells them, "Go, you will chart this course for us so that we may all arrive safely." And you can probably guess where this is going. Hero Sheep makes it to about like the 5th step up the lighthouse before they are just like pureed by birds.
Do we just see like a sheep skeleton that's been like picked clean by the birds just sort of crumble and fall down the stairs?
Yes, the birds spin about and turn into darts. And they shoot through this poor, unfortunate citizen's body. And you look down and you realize that some trickster being seems to have redrawn your map when you weren't looking. Your diagram to be completely wrong.
That's what happens. Took it from Troll Island.
Perhaps that god was angered on that island. Yes, who is next?
Ligeia stands forward, determined, remembering back to her time as a siren, a winged creature upon the ocean, bringing others to their death. It was glorious, and now she is cursed. And so she cries out to the swarm of birds, "Brethren, fellow flock members, I am one of you, and you are one of me. Bring me up this tower." And I think the birds just like swirl around her, and there's sort of a moment, and there's cawing and there's a cacophony, but they're crows or they're tricksters of some kind, so they bring her partway up and then they just drop her, and she tumbles partway, like halfway down the tower, just like, "Screw you!"
Yes, you fall, and now you even hear some of the Artemis worshipping Amazons kind of laughing a little bit. Like, well, we see how this goes. Clearly, Artemis is favored our original plan. Who is next?
But here Nim steps forward and calls upon Hecate, and she picks up a poem that the poet has left, as he was, sprawled out upon the flowers. And she calls upon Hecate to help her bring this poem to life. For the words of a man in love is always the strongest magic. And too late does she realize that the paper kind of disintegrates, and rain in the form of tears start falling from the sky, and the ground quickly begins to saturate, and water begins to rise as she had grabbed the poem about him drowning in his own tears, unfortunately. And she has begun to be overcome by this tear wave.
Yes. You now get the sense the large bear at the top, Toxin, has taken a notice to the noise you're making. Seems to be sort of shuffling into position angrily as its children continue to wound and damage all of you. In fact, its children are now kind of expanding into the crowd and like nicking at them and cutting them. As none of you are able to get a purchase upon this wall.
And Xenon, watches all of this, is undeterred, and as mentioned before, enlists the help of Charistus to once again get a head start on the tower, and calls upon the support of one of the bystanders, one David Lee, to help, for he proclaimed he was good at demolition of objects, and Xenon seems to be making some progress, kind of clearing out some handholds in the side of the rocky terrain that is the lighthouse. But the crows, the giant hawk's attentions, all it has to do once it notices the commotion is sort of flick one of its great feet at the top of the lighthouse, sending a boulder tumbling down the side of the lighthouse. And it knocks Xenon's handiwork, where there were handholds, now there are great holes. You can't really get purchase anymore. And Xenon themselves are knocked off the side of the lighthouse, and their fall is unfortunately broken by that expert in demolition, David. Xenon themselves takes a bit of a concussion from the fall, but through a little bit of additional resolve and spirit, is able to shake things off with only some minor wounds and more major wounds to their pride. Now there's just like boulders and stuff on the ground where there used to be flowers.
Yes, as if history had gone the other way, this David once would have been the focus of a great statue by a future sculptor, but now that sculptor picks another David, as this David is instead crushed. You all suffer pathos for this this contest, for it was in fact perilous, and you all suffered. None of you have been able to climb the tower, and as Xenon noticed, boulder was discarded from the tower. Having realized that it can dislodge boulders, the hawk now begins to hurl more boulders at the crowd for a moment, causing them to separate a little bit, and then it swirls down and picks up agave in one of its claws and flies back to the top of the tower, dangling it out. It seems that Artemis is angry that the Amazons have trusted you to challenge them into going against their original plan, and now threatens the princess herself. The tower itself is crumbling, and though Eros will probably survive, you have a feeling it won't be a very good thing should this great lighthouse crumble. And finally, your names. Everybody's laughing at you now, and your very legacies are under attack. Should you fail to defend your names, you will be a laughingstock among Amazons from this day forward. So these three things are at play. Because you fail in that initial contest, Toxon will get an advantage die to use at some point in this future battle.
So
it was the name, the princess,
and the lighthouse.
And the lighthouse, yes. Okay. So you now will have to choose, assuming you choose to enter this contest once again. You're on the ground. You can either defend the tower or the princess or your names, or you can try to seize the competition. If you seize it, you'll get to sort of choose how the battle takes place, and you have a chance at at really resolving things well. If you fail to seize it, you might win the battle, but things aren't going to end perfectly. So each of you will have to choose seize or defend.
Who wants to do what?
Do we have domains yet, or is that individually decided?
We decide.
Okay,
cool. For this one.
I'll defend.
Okay.
I feel like three of us should probably defend, and two of us should probably seize.
Oh. So Christus defends. Electo?
Electo shall defend, as people are more important than whatever's going on.
Lygia?
I think Lygia is a Caesar. I think
Okay.
she'll seize.
Seize the day. Betir.
Betir will also seize, I think.
Okay.
She's not happy with goddesses who overstay their bounds.
And Xenon, are you
I shall defer to the will of the group and join the defenders.
okay? Very well. You feel like Hermes had his laugh and is not too worried.
Hermes.
Hermes! That was a big wrath.
I'm also looking at the tithing to Aphrodite that the chorus has given you. It'll give you an extra divine. There's divine favor, and then there's a
Bonds.
bond. I think divine favor is probably the right
Yeah.
play here.
So do each of us get one, or just one person gets a divine favor?
In one of your future roles, tithing's high enough for that. I would say you each get one use of it. From here to the end of the session.
Okay.
So,
Thank you for
From
honoring.
Aphrodite.
yes.
Yes.
Well, thank your chorus since you chose their god side.
Okay.
This is going to be any domain. The challenge is 11 here in this defense or seizing.
Cool.
So, see your rolls.
So, I guess the
you
defenders
choose-
go first, and then we'll do. The
Yeah,
scissors. Okay.
we'll go through the defenders first.
Should we do our whole? We
I
have
think
to do our,
it's
the-
easiest
Yeah.
if the three of you roll first.
Okay.
Do you want us to announce ourselves or just go ahead and do the roll?
Go ahead and let's just do the roll for expediency's sake.
Okay.
Technically, we really should proclaim our names, but
Ooh.
roll in. We will not yet reveal the results. As the hawk spins about, hurling more boulders with its remaining talon. The princess, for her credit, does not scream. She is a warrior. She merely wrestles and tries to gain some advantage, but fails.
Very nice.
2 rolls.
Ooh.
Ooh.
All right. Electa, what do you attempt to defend?
Yes, Electa the Pure-Hearted calls upon Betir as guidance because she is so clever-eyed and tries to decide what to protect. And so with resolve in hand, she goes forth to try to will the tower back together. And so she puts her hands up and remembers a spell that at one point Betir said and thinks and focuses, and instead it rains with tears a little bit harder. And so, because she just then remembered the spell that Betir had said was the one that caused the problem earlier. So she is, Electo is not successful.
So your magic,
But also cries because she's pure heart.
your magic
She feels-
swirls about, and everyone's ready to be impressed, and then it fails to utterly achieve anything. You begin to cry, and the poet begins to cry with you. Your suffering is beautiful, at least. I can still see that. I shall write about it.
If we survive.
Though you may not look good in that poem. Very well. Who is next at defending? And what do you defend?
I believe it is Charistus. They're both tied. So
Yeah. So Charistus, he knows that if the princess is not saved, then love will not be saved, and all will be for naught. So he calls on. He looks among the crowd and calls on one who reveals themselves to be Stabin Terry to assist him.
There's one
And
in every
he hands the staff, the rod of Asclepius, to them and instructs them to hold it at such an angle while he prays to Apollo for his wisdom and guidance. And as he prays, a light begins to shine from the tip of the rod of Asclepius and momentarily blinds the giant hawk so that they drop the princess, and Charistus is able to catch her safely at the bottom, at the base of the lighthouse. As they are holding the staff, the light of Apollo is too much for them to handle, and it enters into them, and they begin to tremble and burst with light that pierces their skin, and until they vanish in a puff of wisdom.
Yes, the Amazons cheer as you save their beloved sister and catch her. And the Scythians all cheer as Tabby, for once, doesn't stab anything. He just merely holds a rod. It seems like a transformational moment maybe for him. So excellent. So
new person.
It does seem that Agave has, as at least for now, been saved. And our third, Xenon, right?
Yes. So Xenon assesses the situation and sees Electo's valiant but failed effort to cope with the boulders. And while our names may suffer, in the end, we can overcome that. But this moment is precious. That wisdom is granted to Xenon by Athena. And Athena also grants the wisdom that if a boulder were to fall just so, given the current situation, it would become less of a threat and more of a staircase. And it's just a question as Xenon kind of looks at the situation, perhaps egging the hawk on with a bit of fire. Fire solves a lot of problems. And just at that moment, an Amazon delivery person arrives with just the tools that
I have a
as if I
fire
had
delivery.
Yeah, flaming arrows. Thank you so much. Yes. It's just willed them into existence, and with that, and with a bit of insight from Electo, trying to assess just the right angle. Electo has some experience with hawks. Xenon is able to fire a flaming projectile at the hawk and cause boulders to fall into a sort of loose staircase arrangement on top of the boulders that are already there, turning the situation more in their favor and giving them a path to the freeing of the folks in danger.
Yes. And to be clear, that was the tower defense, right?
Yes, that was the tower defense.
Yes. So in fact, you shoot the strange curved arrow from the Amazon who delivered the package right into, and lines and angles appear in your minds with such succinctness that other people can even see them. You beat Pythagoras to his theorem by like 1,000 years, and in the future, children will refer to this as Zenon's theorem. And you in fact do, the boulders drop down, the tower is not collapsed. In fact, it's maybe more stable than it ever was, and there may even be a pathway up to the top, although it remains to be seen if the advantage is really seized, but that might be to the advantage of those trying to seize combat, that it would be much easier to climb this tower at this point, probably. All right, we have two people attempting to seize control and advantage in this battle. Your names are not defended.
Briefly, thank you to Chaotic Calling and the Raiders. We are playing Agon, a Greek mythological story. We're also raising funds for charity. So if you are able to help support the Driftwood Players, a local theater company, it is thoroughly appreciated. Also, you can make our lives easier or harder, depending on what you prefer, as we are entering into the fray.
Easier.
Well,
like that.
This life is easier. I, Suasive Voice, Lygia. All right, still 11, right? Same target number?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, I'm gonna use my epithet. You know what? She's angry. I'm gonna burn some pathos and blood and valor it up.
Okay.
And I'm going all in. I'm calling on another bond with Batir.
I'm like, go girl, you do it.
And I'm also going to spend my divine favor from Ares, which I've been sitting on from the beginning.
Yeah.
Because I'm angry.
Oh. Ares, in fact, is father of the Amazons and is present and paying attention.
Great. Yeah, it's just some little divine favor there. Little divine favor. Whew.
Don't believe
Nice.
Don't believe the Wonder Woman propaganda. They liked Ares.
How dare.
All right. Let's see. I have both roles, I think.
I don't think so.
Oh, wait.
Batir's
No,
not
just
in
one.
Oh, no, yeah.
You want me to roll as well?
Yeah.
Yes, you're trying to
Right.
seize.
Unless you
All
were,
right.
because you weren't supporting me. Unless,
No.
yeah, you were also rolling. I just used a bond.
So while
Thank
she's
goodness for
rolling,
bonds.
there's a giant tower. There's a
Big
poet
tower.
who's
Yeah.
weeping at the bottom. There's a giant hawk at the top
I
of the
hope rolls for
tower.
this poet.
And
It
Ares.
had a princess in its hands, but but Charistus, our centaur, managed to trick the hawk into dropping the princess, who's now on the ground. And there's a big rocky sort of outcropping next to the tower that we might be able to use the stairs. And
Yes.
God in the
Nice.
lighthouse trapped.
Given all that, Lygia, what do you do?
Filled with rage and ferocity, still remains like relatively calm face, quickly strides over to the weeping poet that is standing next to Alecto, I think, at this point, and crying and
beautiful
talking
and
about
In a net.
it pulls him out of the net, grabs his hands, and looks at him, and just says, "I will happily remove your hands and kill that hawk for you if you do not take your poetic ass up that tower and deal with this situation. Save the princess or die trying." And then turns him around and shoves him up the tower.
Holy shit.
He seems to keep trying to work in an illusion or a metaphor, but he's too terrified.
And then
Words
just
go-
marches him up the tower.
You hurl him up the tower where he runs up the boulders that Xenon sort of dropped down into strategic locations, tripping, picking himself back up all the way.
Yeah, his poetic ass, his very poetic donkey.
Yes.
That's baying next to him.
He's panicking, but he makes it to the top.
Good.
So we'll see. And then Bettier.
Batir calls out, "Dear poet, catch!" And she pulls the
Holy
knife
crap.
from her waist, and she's very good with a knife, and she can safely toss it to him so that it doesn't impale him.
Got it.
No, it doesn't. But she tosses it to him, and she says, "Dear poet, keep a steady hand and remember that all love is a leap of faith in the end." And then she crouches down and summons some hella magic, and flings the poet into the hawk, and is hoping that he's holding the knife out resolutely. She waits for him to catch the knife before.
Yes. You fling the poet into the hawk, which certainly surprises both the poet and the hawk. He slices the hawk, which it cries out and sort of loses a bit of its footing. And the poet remarkably lands on his feet behind the hawk, still holding the knife and shaking uncontrollably. He has a strange look in his eyes. Did any of the rest of you climb? It's just the poets at the top, right?
Legier followed him.
Followed him.
I'm on the stairs. I
she
imagine.
was planning on walking to make sure he dealt with what he was supposed to deal with.
You just notice a feeling of being very attracted to everybody. You like as you get to the top, right? It's not uncontrollable,
Yeah.
but
I think
like
Lygia sort of
it's
shrugs
there.
it off, and she's like, "Yeah, that's normal."
Yeah.
Then you drown them. We drown the pretty sailors.
Yeah, and I suppose you're very familiar with his looks. You recognize like he is just like he's panicking and like has probably urinated in his clothing.
It's one of
but,
my favorites, the look of panicked lust.
Yeah. So you're probably very familiar with that at the top. All right. So good job. You have in fact seized sort of control of this battle. So you get to sort of pick how you approach the final battle. Christus, you're still sort of group leader. So assuming you choose, you can kind of pick that domain and sort of explain to us how the group is going to defeat this hawk or help the poet to do so.
I shout to my companions, remember, the poet must be the one to slay or...
He still has his hands, okay?
I wasn't going to bring that up, Lygia, but I'm glad to hear. We'll talk later. Our job now is to do what we can to distract the hawk, to make his... to make it difficult for him to basically thwart the poet in while he does the final act.
That makes sense.
Good plan.
All right. So this sounds like craft and reason.
That's what I was going for.
Yes. All right. We will do this. The craft and reason. Now, this is a you're going up against the basically adopted child of a god here.
Yeah. It's super easy,
all
right?
Yeah.
So this is going to be mythic. Sorry, this is going to be epic. Not quite mythic. So you will have to spend pathos to enter this competition.
All right.
Assuming you all choose. I don't know how you're doing there. For those who don't remember this from last week, they burn pathos up until the point of they have no, then they enter agony. Once they're in agony, they start burning their fate. And fate, you cannot get it back through any normal means. So once you're out of fate, you die. You've reached the end of your journey. So that's pathos. All of you are going to have to spend it simply to enter this competition.
Okay.
And I'm gonna set the roll here, and it has a advantage die from before, from that very first battle.
Should we say what we're gonna do first, or?
You can let me know if you're entering the
right.
competition. Yes.
You can
I
also
stoutly
pay no attention to the roll I made already.
No.
I, stout-legged Christus, will bring this bird to heel so that the poet may end it.
I, Batir Nim, will engage the bird so the poet may destroy it.
I, Electo, the pure-hearted and strong-limbed, will work to encourage the bard to perhaps slay it of his own will so love could prevail.
I, Ironbender Xenon, shall draw upon all of the reason I have gathered throughout my life and my familial connections, my parentage, to inspire this story of great love to its best conclusion.
I, a suasive-voiced Lygia, will utilize my great deed that I earned on the last island, which is the fear in the hearts of others, to remind this poet of what fate awaits him should he fail and spur him into action.
Excellent. All right, and I'm looking. The audience has favored in this competition Aphrodite, so I'm not going to give the the bird any strong divine favor here for Artemis, although Artemis is well represented. And she does care what's going on, so she's still involved here. This is craft and reason. And the target is going to be 14.
Oh, jeez.
Boy.
Okay.
So how do bonds with gods work again? What die roll is that?
It's a D12.
The D12.
Bonds are.
Lygia, what is your name die?
My name die is 1d6, so I'm going to also spend pathos to utilize my arts and oration.
And I would like to add is Xeon. What is your name die? Is it still a D6?
Still D6.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fear in
I'm
the
using-
hearts of others. What do we think that die is? For my great deed.
I'm going to burn some additional pathos to use arts and oration, for I feel that some of this will be speaking to the poet's heart.
So, Tony, what would my fear in the hearts of others? I mean, actual play. One of the writers of this game is saying a D10, so...
Okay, I'll take it.
You sure it's not a D12? I'm just saying. Just saying.
No, I think for this D10 does
Okay.
sound right to me. It's not quite.
And I will call...
I've called upon a lot.
Here's
I
the
will
thing.
explain
Yeah, I'm calling
the
upon a
emphasis.
lot.
I don't necessarily want to succeed, because then I mark 1 point of agony, and then I get 1 point of fate, and then I get a boon. So I'm kind of okay if I fail.
Okay.
Oh no, suffer.
I shall call upon my bond with Lygia. Actually, I don't think I can anymore. Forget that. We'll just keep moving.
There's a lot.
Okay. Well, I fail, and I'll mark a point of fate.
Okay.
Oh no.
So let's see. I'm bringing up the rolls here. And it looks like our first clever eye Batir. Let's hear how things went for you.
Yeah, so Batir, she spent a lot of her magics throwing that poet into that hawk. And so she's like, okay, I'll do it again. Oh, God.
Stupid poets.
And she just like, I think somewhere Hecate is like, oh, girl, again, why must you call my name so much? And Batir, she tries to summon enough energy to lift the poet again, but it kind of backfires, and she just ends up rerouting some of her magic and basically stunning herself, and she kind of stumbles down the stairway.
Yes. So you were trying to use the magic to like to pick the poet up.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say you accidentally pick up what looks like a large bird cage beside the poet. As it lifts up in the air, you see a sleeping baby, diaper and wings, and he starts to wake up. Like just seems a little confused about what's going on. And you're startled by this. You feel the immense like presence of something beyond you, which is part of. Yes.
I yell, as you wish.
Lygia.
Lygia, like you said, or like we've described, the feeling that is coming over this poet is a feeling that she misses and she hungers for, in both a literal and a metaphorical sense. That simultaneous deep and uncontrollable terror, but also mixed in with a confusion of lust that just sort of freezes them in place. And we just see as Lygia slowly like moves towards the poet, and her eyes just sort of just incredible focus, and she just reaches out and just like must push off. Tower, no. And in that moment recovers herself, but is unable to do anything except, I imagine the poet turns around and sees her just like claws out, fangs about, and just like about to tear into him with talons, and just like,
Normally, and he is terrified, but he closes his eyes and like tries to kiss you, but trips and fails to do so. Probably developed some new issues over this incident, but he just seems unable to control his emotions at this point. So far, the hawk above seems to be sort of regaining its balance, getting into place, puts its talons on some more rocks, and it seems in danger again of collapsing this tower as it looks at you, deciding who to attack first. Who is?
I think
would
we
be-
have either
We have a
Electo
tie.
or Christus.
Let's go with Electo.
All right. So Electo, the pure-hearted and the strong-limbed, runs up those towers, those rocks, and jumps, and gets there next to the poet right when Lygia almost makes this person fall off. And using Aphrodite's like divine favor through Eros, who is now out and free, decides to use the emotions that are just kind of filling the room right now to inspire the poet with spirit, and takes, if of course with the knowledge that the poet is consent, takes the poet's hand and puts it where her heart is and says, I believe in a thing called love. Just listen to the rhythm of my heart. There's a chance we can make it now. And there's rocks till the suns are all coming down. I believe in a thing called love. Now go kill it. And just tries to use that into like inspire, because the poet must take this down.
Yes, with his hand on your collarbone, he looks at you for the first time with wild eyes and says, for you, I will kill 1,000,000 hawks. Every child creature of whatever god you want for you, I will do it. And I will sing out your name in glory. Our name shall be written in the stars. And he stands up and straightens himself, and pulls out his tiny knife and begins to like climb up toward the hawk.
At first, stout-legged Christus isn't sure what to do about this hawk that is so far up in the sky while he is trapped on the ground. But then he feels in a moment the inspiration, the divine inspiration of Aphrodite, and he knows what must be done. He gathers some dirt from the ground, and feeling it enchanted with her power, he blows on it, and a strong updraft that can only come from the gods themselves pulls it up towards the hawk. And as the hawk breathes it in, he calls out to Lygia, for he knows that she is of avian heritage. And he sees her there, stunned and unsure of what to do. And he calls, Lygia, you must seduce the hawk.
She just snaps out of it.
In sort of like the drug induced haze from the basically the high that the hawk is now experiencing from this powder that has been delivered up to it. It sees Lygia there as this most impossibly beautiful bird creature, and
It's not wrong.
she's able to distract it with her wiles.
You see Lygia look over the edge of the tower and just give you that, you'll be next. I will drown you and your kin.
Do it for love!
I think Lygia and the rest of you in the room, the poet at least, and Electo see is this giant bird head just look down upside down into like where the bricks have been knocked out, sort of where the light is. By the way, there's a huge bright light in here as well. I forgot to note.
That's right. Yeah.
Blinds. It stares down at you, and it is so distracted by you, it doesn't notice this light sort of like magically float into place and blinds it. And and it cries out in anguish that it can no longer see the beautiful face of this bird creature it had not yet noticed before. And Xenon.
Xenon watches the crow, the distraction, the seduction, but also watches as Alecto connects with the poet. But the poet said he was going to do this for Alecto, not for his love. And Xenon knows that if this is not a triumph of true love, that we will be the ones at the center of the angry gods. And you can see there's just this weight that descends on Xenon, like, oh God. Gods specifically, and she makes the agonizing decision to call. And Xenon has not discussed her her lineage. You think she's somewhat like got divine line, but she doesn't really like to talk about it at all, or they don't really like to talk about it at all. And Xenon walks up to the poet, says, "You must write this chapter in your love story. And you must do it." And she fashions a little image of his true love, of the princess. "For she who is your heart, remember her, focus her in your head, and go. I promise the gods will be with you." And she sends him up with his knife, and then she mutters under her breath, "Xenon, disciple of Hephaestus, daughter of Aphrodite, call upon your mom. Make this true love shine." And could you get Eros out of the tower?
He seems inspired, but he stops. He says, "You have done everything here. If I am to write a story of our love the way that Aphrodite would want, I would have to leave your names out entirely. I would have to make you adversaries, because in every great love story, only the lovers are the heroes. Is this really what you wish?"
Yes. We wish for a peaceful end to this conflict, and we wish for a love that will transcend generations and keep peace on this island. If that be the cost, so be it.
I will remember your sacrifice myself, then. Thank you. Thank you for reminding me what I am about. And he turns around and says, "Great beast of the sky, come at me then. May I not be the brightest beacon here, much brighter than this light upon the tower? Why, this light is merely the erection of man, but my heart is the erection of gods. Why..."
That is a word choice.
That's my mom. Or Eros. Is that
My
you,
mom.
Eros?
Yeah.
It is Eros, in fact. You see Eros kind of grinning and pretending to be asleep a little bit. And then he runs up and leaps straight at the heart of the bird and leaps onto it and pushes it back. They both dive off. And you think for a moment that they're both going to hit the ground as he stabs the bird in the heart, and it falls down. But right as they're about to hit, the agave comes galloping up on her horse and sort of leaps over the bird, grabbing him off. And in using the physical properties that were almost drawn in the air from Xenon's theory, manages to calculate the exact trajectory by which not to kill him, but to sort of convert his momentum into sideways momentum. He pulls him on the horse and kisses him, and then throws him to the ground and gallops toward her mother. The bird hits the ground and just is just crushed in the pulp of feathers. And you hear a great crying out, as if a great woman's voice in the heavens cries out at this moment. And you feel a sense of anger, but you also feel a sense of love. And you look up and you see Eros waking up, stepping out of the cage, and it's as if color enters back into the world here.
So you're doing
People
just fine.
grab each other, grab their lovers, remember how they once felt. And then he himself flies off into the world with a mischievous grin on his face, prepared to do what he will.
I mean, this is why I left home. How can you get any work done like this?
That sounds awful. I'm so sorry.
The crowd cheers for Ibycus. They ignore you for the most part. It seems they saw you attempting to climb the tower. In the end, it was their own Scythia and Ibycus who did all the work, who conquered the bird, who shown them that love and valor can exist and that poets can actually do battle. And they absurdly forget you're even standing there as they walk away, carrying Ibycus in their arms, on their horses, headed to the forts where there will presumably be some sort of marriage or ceremony. And you're left standing there. They even take your horses, other than Charistus.
Did someone try and take Charistus?
Do we feel like perhaps just leaving is
Can I drown
correct?
just one of them, please?
No.
Fine.
No.
I mean, they don't see us.
Let her drown one.
I'll be
Drown
back.
the bird.
Better that than one of our sailors.
Do you walk the many Krellin leagues back to your ship?
It is 70 Krellins back, like leagues.
So many Krellins.
Yeah.
So
And
many
uncelebrated,
ones.
you leave, but as you pass by the temple of Aphrodite, you see a sudden light, and you know that even if mortals won't remember your name from this day, that at least one goddess was watching and approves of the work you did.
Good.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that takes us to the end. We off screen, we will have a voyage in which they proclaim their great deeds and form bonds with each other. But that will be done by the time we return next week, and we see their final adventure of this run, or maybe of.
Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us, and for all of the very generous donations that came in. We will have one more portion of our epic tale next week, so that'll be same time, same place, 6 p.m. Pacific time on this lovely channel. But in the meantime, I will
And I do have one more donation to read out, by the way.
do.
Okay. Good.
From Stab and Terry, who managed not to stab. Look, see, I wanted to be here earlier, but the wife, you remember Betty, she was doing the thing. But I'm just here to say, go do that heroic thing. Just get to making babies, I guess. So there you go.
Mary.
Thank you, Terry.
Advice. Thank you. All right. Sorry, Lauren.
No, thank you for reading out the donation. Let's have everybody sign off and say where they can be found between now and next week, and then we will end this wonderful stream. I'm gonna hopefully have it up tomorrow. We'll see on YouTube. I got this one up before the Monday, so that's a good start for me. Let's
great.
start with Cheryl, and then we'll just loop around.
Hey everybody, I am Cheryl, aka Muppet Aphrodite, and you can find me on basically any of the internet platforms, TikTok, Twitch, Twitter, whatever. And hope to see you on Sundays at 10 a.m. at my Twitch channel on non-holiday weekends.
How about Janine?
I'm Janine. I am at Admiral Asma on Twitter. And I think you can find me on Saturday at Unexpected Productions doing the WIUP radio show there, I think the 30th.
Nice. And we'll go down to Dan.
Dan Poslins at Dan Poslins. Don't look for me.
Good to know. Tony.
I am Tony Beeman. I'm at Tiny Beeman on most things. I will be on the Unexpected Productions Twitch channel on Thursday night at 8:30 Pacific for a new sort of, it's called Triptych. It'll be 3 different forms exploring one word. And then the radio show on, is that Saturday, Janine?
It is Saturday,
Yeah.
and I'll be there too.
Yeah, awesome.
Ooh.
So Saturday
Dan,
night you can see, Dan, are you there?
I don't think I put it
Well,
in.
we
for
can't
Saturday.
find out because we're not allowed to look for him.
Don't
No,
look.
that's right.
Oh,
Don't look.
look.
And so
Invisible.
it'll be Saturday night at
8:30.
8:30
Pacific.
p.m. Pacific.
Yeah, and Cheryl, you're emceeing that, right?
That's correct. I'll be your announcer for the evening.
Wow.
Ooh. Claudia.
Hi, I'm Claudia, but on the Twitch and Twitter, I go by Jackie Dash, JAKIDASH. If you want more of this, you can see me here on Random Tuesdays channel next Monday with all these other people. But I also stream on my own Mondays and Thursdays at 1:30 p.m.
Awesome. I'm Random Tuesday. I stream on this channel. Hit that follow button if you haven't yet already. I also am running a Jane Austen style RPG over on Thursdays on Table Story, so you can watch that Thursday afternoons. Thank you so much, everybody, for being here. You are all wonderful and delightful, and we will catch you. We'll catch you next week. All right. Bye.
Bye.